Yay.
Did you blow him out once?
He right, we're gonna cut the cake.
Oh, he wanted to bring
He said, I forgot to make a wish.
So, everybody, listen up. Everybody gather around.
They're gonna cut the cake out.
Everybody come in, gather around, find a place to sit where you can be comfortable, because we want Papa to tell us some stories. We want to hear about your childhood, and you know, this is the opportunity for people to ask questions about like random like childhood stories, and we want to hear about them. So you have all of your grandchildren minus Olivia. Sorry she's not here, but we would love for you to tell us. I would like for you to tell. I would love for my children to hear about milking the cows.
One cow.
Well, you want me to start with that?
Whatever you
I'll
start
tell you a story that occurred before I began to milk the cows. When I was about 7, we walked to school, and one morning we were walking to school, and we were almost there, and I looked down and I saw in the middle of the dirt road a dollar bill. Now this is 1945 or 6, and a dollar bill is big money, okay? So Rush was with me, and so I picked up the dollar bill, and I said, what shall we do with it? And of course he said, I don't know. So I decided actually, at recess, there was a little store next to the country school that we went to. So we went over to the school, and we asked the man, I still remember his name was Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, would you give us change for this dollar bill? Change. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I know because I've been studying math and arithmetic that a dollar bill equals 20 nickels, right?
Right.
Reluctantly, the man gave me 20 nickels for my dollar bill.
You got more money.
Right. A lot more money. And we bought 2 moon pies and 2 RC colas at recess. And we did that every day for several days. That's only, you know, a moon pie was a nickel and an RC cola was a nickel. We still had 90 nickels, and we shared those. And that went on several days, and one morning my mother said to us, have you guys seen, she didn't say guys, hey boys, have y'all by any chance seen a dollar bill on the road? And I said, I have to tell the truth. I did find a dollar bill. She said, well, that dollar bill belongs to your friend who goes to school with you, who had her lunch money for 1 week. 1 week dollar bill. And she dropped the dollar bill and lost it, and you found it. I need it so I can return it to her. Okay? Well, we had spent most of the dollar bill, right?
He said fire keepers.
So I gave her whatever we had left, and I can't remember what it was. It probably wasn't very much. And she said, okay, in order to make up for these nickels that you owe for this balance in this dollar bill, you will do the following things, since you named several chores for us to do. So that's one story, and that is a story about honesty. You should have taken that dollar bill back to the school or to home and said, somebody lost this dollar bill, right? Yeah. That's what we should have done. That's a true story.
Yeah.
Now, about the milking, do all of you know how to milk a cow?
No.
I've done it before.
No.
Nobody knows how.
I'm about to say.
None of us have ever milked a cow.
Take the tail,
It was a goat, it wasn't a cow.
Take the tail
Sorry, it
and
was
you
a
pump. You pump their tail like this.
we had at least one cow and sometimes two cows. We never had more than two.
What were their names?
One was named Judy and one was named Bossy.
I
So
think
one
it was Judy.
day, and you have to milk cows. You have to milk them every morning and every afternoon. You can't miss. Understand? So one afternoon, my mother comes to me and she says, "Your dad's not back home yet, and I don't think he's going to be here in time. And somebody's got the milk, has to milk the cow, and it will not be me." My mother said that was one thing she never would do, milk a cow. So she went out there with me, and what you do is you have a bucket, right? And in the bucket you have about that much, about 4 inches of water, clean water. And you go out and you put the bucket down and you take some food for the cow and you put it in a trough, right? And the cow comes up and starts eating the food. You take a little stool and you set it down and you take the water out in your hand, out of the bucket, and you wash the udders. So they'll be clean, okay? Very clean. And then you throw the rest of the water away, and then you milk the cow, and you catch the udder at the top, and you squeeze to the bottom, like this. Squeeze, squeeze. And first of all, most beginning milkers use one hand. But when you really get to be a pro, you can use both hands. And you milk the milk out. Now, occasionally the cow who is eating her food will take a step and step in the bucket.
Oh.
And when that happens, what you do is you get the cow's foot out of the bucket and you take the
Do you
bucket.
say any
Like,
explicit
shoot!
words? Yeah. And then you take the foot out.
And you throw the milk away and you go back and get water and you do the whole thing again, see? And you milk and you get the milk out. Finally, you're not getting any more milk. But you
Until the cow stops stepping in the bucket.
yeah, that's right.
Very good.
And then you take the milk in to the house. And my mother would always have a very clean cloth across the top of a pitcher. And she would pour very slowly, strain very slowly, the raw milk from the cow through that cloth.
Was it
into
like
that
cheesecloth?
pitcher.
Was it cheesecloth, Dad?
Sorry?
Was it
I
cheesecloth?
have no
Like a
idea.
filtering cloth?
I have no idea. But the idea was, she called it straining the milk.
Right.
In other words, she'd pour it through into the pitcher, and then she would place the pitcher in the refrigerator. We did have a refrigerator. And we drank milk straight from the cow all the time. Maybe on Sundays, for special occasions, we would have iced tea. But the rest of our meals, breakfast, dinner, or lunch, dinner, we would have milk to drink, straight from the cow.
Wow.
And when you take the milk out of the refrigerator to pour it, the cream has risen to the very top of the container. Cream rises, and you can see it very easily because the bottom part of the milk is white and the top part is yellow, very deep yellow. So what you do is you stir it really good, right?
Oh, wow.
You
Or
stir
would
it.
you sometimes take it and use it for other
Yeah,
things?
yeah,
Suck it off.
yeah.
What do you make with the cream? Could you use it to make like
You could
Butter?
use it for cream and coffee or
Did you ever know
Pie.
anybody?
Pie,
Did you ever know
no.
anybody who made butter, Dad?
Rich. Yeah.
we had to
you
churn.
churn the cream to make the butter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the rich,
And,
rich.
but most of the time you just stirred it up and had milk, cold milk. That's what we drank. I got so used to cold milk that when we moved to Meridian and started drinking bought milk, I didn't like it.
Didn't taste right.
Yeah.
Didn't like
So
it.
how old were you when y'all moved to Meridian?
I was 9 years old.
All right, so tell us what the house was like when you moved to Meridian when you were 9 years old. Who all was living in that house?
Okay. The house was on a high hill, well, a hill. And it had, you'd go in the front door, and to the left was a large kitchen area, and to the right was a sort of a dining and living room combined. And then you would go down the hall, and on the right there would be 2 bedrooms, and at the end of the hall there would be a bathroom, and on the left a bedroom. And there was, the kids included, starting with the youngest. Philip was the youngest. Philip was a baby. Y'all know Philip, right? He was 1 year old. And could he cry? Could. And the next oldest was Lane, your Uncle Lane. And then the next oldest was Kent. Kent was next. The next was Mark. None of you knew Mark. Mark was killed in a car accident in 1966. And then next was Rush, and then next me. All boys, right? Which means that we could just sleep anywhere, anytime, in any bed.
But there had been a little girl in there after Rush was born.
I had a little
Her
sister,
name was Sherry.
Sherry, who died. She was number 3. I was first, Rush, and then Sherry. Sherry died of a disease then called diphtheria, which I think is a pulmonary asthmatic sort of disease. And that was in 1943. And believe it or not, back then they didn't know how to treat that. And now it would be cured. I mean, you know.
Yeah, there's a shot for it.
Right.
And how old
prevent
was she when she passed?
She died at 2 and a half. I still remember her.
Wow.
Beautiful little girl. So it was Mother and Daddy and 6 boys in the house.
So then from that house, how long were y'all at that house?
That's the house
That was the house.
that's the
So
house.
what about the house in Laurel?
That's the house
What's
we
that
know.
like?
That's the house
So
we
this
know.
is the house that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
And it was expanded.
Yeah,
Over
they-
the years,
they
this
added
house
on.
was greatly expanded.
so at that time, tell us like who slept in what room with whom? Like how are the
So-
sleeping arrangements?
It's hard to remember. We all kind of slept together.
Dad, was that room that became the cedar closet later, was that a bedroom?
Yeah. That was made into a
Because I think when I was a baby, I think I remember as a baby and toddler sleeping in that room.
Yeah, you probably did.
But it was dark. There was
Yeah, it was.
were no
very-
windows.
The smell of that room.
Yeah, Daddy added a room on the back of that house that I just described. And he bought some bunk beds and he placed them in rows. It was kind of like a military barracks. And he had 6 beds in there in a row like that. We all had a bed in there. That was in the back part of the
How
house.
long did you guys share a room like that? Your whole life?
A number of years, I don't remember how long. But the most interesting house was the house in Laurel or Glade before we moved to Meridian. It was a log house. It wasn't a log cabin, it was a real house. Fairly big house. Daddy cut down, with help of course, pine trees, stripped the bark, cut them and notched them, and made a log house. And between the logs, he nailed big spikes and put cement between the logs, white cement. He painted the logs a kind of a maroon color. And then he decided the roof would be green. So it was a very colorful house.
Yes.
It really was.
He was kind of an amazing person, wasn't he?
Yes, he
It
was.
was amazing.
But that house had 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 1 large living room, 1 dining room, kitchen, front porch, and that's it.
You're talking about the one that you've been describing?
Yeah,
as the
yeah,
last one.
that house, yeah.
The earlier one.
The one
In
with
Laurel,
Blade.
Mom. In
Yeah.
Laurel.
St. Laurel?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Glade, yeah, which is
Glade,
outside of Laurel. Most people in that community did not have plumbing, you know what I mean? They did not have inside bathrooms. But Mother said, I'm not moving there without a bathroom. So, Daddy had a well dug, you know, with a shovel. You hire people to come out there and dig a well till you hit water. And then he had a pump to pump the water up like that
He was amazing.
into the house.
Yes,
He was like an engineer.
He did all kind, yeah, he did all kinds.
He was just a really incredible person.
Yeah. He could build anything.
So a little side note is that you notice that Dad keeps referring to his dad as Daddy, but his mother was Mother. So it was Mother and
Did
Daddy.
you call her Mama at all?
Yeah, we called her Mama.
But you call her Mother
It
now.
depended on the situation.
Mother, I found the dollar.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see.
Well, when she became a grandmother, she made, well, and because Westland.
But you know, when we were little, I didn't call her grandmother. I don't remember that coming up until later.
She proclaimed it at some point.
I know.
When I was little, I remember you guys telling us. Call her
But what did I call her before that? Because I know I didn't call her grandmother when I was tiny.
Grandma, or.
I think I called her grandma or
She wasn't
grandmama.
Granny, that's for sure.
No, it wasn't
What'd y'all call them?
grandma.
We called
Grandma.
I always called your mother grandmother too, but just
Yeah.
because she never said.
Yeah,
I think we all called. I think most of the cousins called her grandma.
my mother.
Yeah. That, I mean, because when Carol and I, and she might remember this, when we went to see the cousins in Memphis a year ago,
Yeah.
they when they would talk about grandma, they would say grandma,
Yeah.
grandma and granddaddy.
My-
I remember
Oh,
calling
wow.
him granddaddy.
Cousins on that
Granddaddy.
side. That's what-
Yeah.
So I want to know about tell us about school days in Meridian because
Well, I'll tell you about Glade first. I started school in Glade, Mississippi, which is a little community south of Laurel, Jones County. You could start there in the first grade and graduate from the same school. It was a country school. Wood oiled floors, and we knew that because most people went barefooted to school, except when it was really cold. And the oil on the floor it was virtually indelible, and it would get on the bottom of your bare feet.
Wow.
And you would have to try your best to wash your feet carefully before you went to bed at night. We had, in those days, you started in what they called the primer, not the first grade, but the primer. And if you did well in primer, then you went to the second grade, right? If you did not do well in primer, you went then to the first grade. So it was really almost like a sort of pre-kindergarten in a sense, that first year. And if you showed the ability and if you were deemed to be a fair student, then the second year you would be in the second grade. I went there to the first semester of the fourth grade. I got my first paddling in the third grade.
For what? What'd you do?
I got my first paddling in the third grade because our teacher in the third grade told us repeatedly, when you line up to go for lunch, do not scrape your fingernails on the blackboard.
What's that like?
And for some unknown reason, the very day she warned us, I did it.
You went like this?
I just walked by the blackboard.
I didn't know it, you know.
Yeah.
Like that.
What's that like? What's that like?
Oh, it's so loud and
touch that.
screechy.
Cringy.
So I got a good paddling. I got 2 paddlings in school. That was my first one.
Like how many times?
Just
did you-
two?
Just 3.
3 good licks, about 3. And the first paddling I got was on my right leg, right here. 3 good licks.
Well, that sounds painful.
Oh yeah, it was painful.
Oh, I bet many people in this room got some punishment in school.
That school,
Not me.
that school,
Dad, you
did,
did.
that school did not have air conditioning.
I got
Go
spanked.
listen,
I got
listen.
Did not have air conditioning. Did not have bathrooms. Did not have a gymnasium. Did not have. Well, we had a football field, but it was really a pasture. You know, that they kind of cleared off for it.
Sure.
What happened?
You got the
Go to
football
bathroom?
field.
So we're outhouses, right?
Cross your legs.
Yeah, yeah, outhouses. Yeah, yeah.
How old would you go to primer school?
6,
6 years old.
just like starting. Yeah, yeah.
They didn't
My,
have kindergarten.
my first teacher was Mrs. Hughes, but I thought her name, I couldn't catch her name, and I thought she said shoes. So when I came home that first day or two, they said, "Who's your teacher?" I said, "Miss Hughes." Miss Hughes? I don't think I know Miss Hughes. Found out later it was Mrs. Hughes. So I'll remember her name.
That's
What do you
fantastic.
think about Mrs. Hughes? Mrs.
Yeah, Miss
Hughes.
Hughes.
Mrs.
Miss
Hughes.
Hughes.
Right?
When we moved to Meridian,
Say it 5
Yeah.
times fast.
we moved in January of the year, and we did not finish the second half of that year of school. We didn't finish that. We went to school from, in those days we started in September to December, and then we moved and we did not go to school for the spring, right?
Wow.
So when I started the next fall in Meridian, the big question was, will he be still in the 4th grade, because I'd only finished half the 4th grade, or the 5th grade? My dad wrote a letter to Glade School and asked if they would confirm that I would be able to continue into the 5th grade, and they did that, and I went into the 5th grade. Very, very difficult. I almost failed the 5th
5th grade was hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
jump.
hard one.
Yeah, to make that jump.
Why didn't, Papa, why didn't you go back to school when you moved?
We were getting moved into our house. We lived in the country.
You were
It was-
building it, weren't you? I mean, it took a while to.
You gotta milk the cow.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
How did when you
Until
moved
that's
from
Robin coming along when Philip was second. And then,
Was Philip 7?
What were you gonna
He
say?
wasn't that much older than
was
her.
wondering about
Robin was
the move.
born in 1952, I think. I'm not sure how old Philip was.
I thought he was 7, I don't know why I think so. Maybe
Oh,
not.
because you said
I think he was 5 or
1945
I think he was like 5 or 6 because I remember when I was pregnant with Russell, and grandmother told me to make sure Wesley felt special, taken care of. Where is Wesley? Oh, there he is.
Who said that?
Gigi. She just said that she had always felt bad because when Robin was born, Philip was very resentful towards Robin.
Yeah.
And it was just a hard time. And she said she wished that she had done something special for Philip before. And so we put Wesley, he started taking violin lessons. You remember that? So we were trying to kind of give him some things, you know.
I want to
But-
know about the move. How'd y'all move everything from Glade? What'd that look like? Did you load up some big trucks?
Right. Daddy had a friend, World War II vet, a lot of World War II vets, and his name was Eddie Johnson. I still remember him. Eddie Johnson. Smoked camels, unfiltered. Eddie had a big truck, and he and Dad loaded our stuff into his truck, and we drove to Meridian. Rush and I sat in the back of the truck.
The
How
whole way.
far of a drive was that?
About an hour,
Okay.
about 50 something miles.
Really?
Okay.
And then later, after we got all that stuff there, Mother drove up with the rest of the other four.
Now, what was the reason for the move?
I'll ask about it.
Mother hated Glade. To be blunt, she really hated Glade. It was isolated. It was. She was used to
The other one was
being in a city setting. She was separated from her parents.
Yeah,
She lost a daughter there,
yeah.
and Mark had a heart attack. Over at Glade.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
I didn't
How
know
old
that.
was he? A little boy?
He had a heart murmur.
Well, how old was he when he had the heart attack?
He was about
6.
4.
So what was his heart condition?
I don't know the
It's never-
details.
And then maybe they didn't really fully know.
I do know that they predicted that he wouldn't live to be beyond adolescence, but you know, medicine changes so quickly.
Right,
He lived to be 22, and he didn't die of heart trouble.
right, it was a car accident, which is like heartbreaking. Well, you know.
Oh gosh.
No pun intended.
So tell everybody about how y'all would carry him around. Like he was really.
We carried him around on our backs. When we went places, he couldn't walk very far at
So
all.
he just gets so out of breath.
And we
And
put him on our backs and carried him on our backs.
But he got really strong towards the end of his life. If I remember, I remember Mom saying that he looked better than he had ever looked, and he was healthy and gaining weight.
Yeah.
And then he died in the car accident.
yeah.
It was so
Well, I've
sad.
always said Mark was probably the smartest one of us, actually.
Wow.
But he had these issues and things that were,
Physically. Yeah.
Was he driving when he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
By himself.
Yeah, he was driving. He was driving a van.
and that happened right before we were, going to move to
Jackson.
Statesboro, Georgia.
Georgia. 'Cause
Yeah,
we
kinda
had
like-
gotten to the point where
kind of
it was,
ironic. They say, you know, oh, you know, you might die from his heart. And he used to race cars. And then he didn't die in a
That's
race
right,
car,
that's
right?
right.
He just died in a traffic.
Random
Right.
car accident.
Yeah.
This was a thing because, he had gone with some people, other people that were working
I had.
on
yeah.
their doctorate, they write the thesis and all, and they had gone up to Washington DC, and I had Wesleyan and was there with her,
There she is, right over there.
and she was about 2, yeah.
That was
2.5.
66, so she was, yeah.
Yeah, about 2.5 or something. And so I get this call, he had been in Washington doing the research and he was gonna be coming back home. And so I get this call from Kent saying that Mark had been in this terrible accident in town. It was
In Meridian,
this
yeah.
Meridian thing. And, that he would let me know how things were going. Well, I started trying to get in touch with him, but he had left. This is just one of those phenomenal things. They were not phenomenal, but anyway, he was on his way, and of course, we didn't have cell phones or
I
anything
was
back
with
then.
3 other students.
He was with 3 other students. And so I get another call from Kent saying that Mark had died. So, oh, nurse.
How
And
did,
so
how did Uncle
finally-
Kent get that duty? That's awesome.
So that night, I went on to bed, you know, cause they didn't, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, you get home.
Yeah.
And he as soon as I opened the door, you know, of course, I was just, and I said, oh, where does it say, how long is it taking, or where have you been? He said, what's wrong? So I had to tell him right then.
Wow.
what had happened, and it was just, and then we, very soon after that, we were moving, so it was just so much stuff, you know, at one time, but we, of course, we were there for the funeral and all of that, and,
You see, he's 22.
something like that.
That's Russell's age.
So Dad, back then they didn't have freeways.
No,
The freeway system hadn't been done, so I guess you just, it's all back highway roads,
well, it was
highways.
the state highways like, Highway 11.
Highway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You probably drove right by here.
Anyway,
have.
that's just,
probably did.
that's one of those sad things, but, you know, we worked it all out, and
Well,
then.
That's where cram came